So we have a police state going on in Ferguson, Missouri, but some people are unhappy about it. Some of those people will not surprise you, but others will. So first, let's start with the unsurprising. President Obama reacts.
Today, I'd like us all to take a step back and think about how we're going to be moving forward. I also just spoke with Governor Jay Nixon of Missouri. I expressed my concern over the violent turn that events have taken on the ground and underscored that now's the time for all of us to reflect on what's happened and to find a way to come together going forward. So now's the time for healing. Now's the time for peace and calm on the streets of Ferguson. Now is the time for an open and transparent process to see that justice is done.
Fired up, ready to go. Look, he's in a tough position. Of course, he's got to tell everybody on each side to calm down. And you don't want the president riling people up. On the other hand, it looked like he was talking about a mundane resolution regarding a trade deal with Panama. Although I think he might be more animated about that. All right. Anyway, more correct but uninteresting words from our president.
When something like this happens, the local authorities, including the police, have a responsibility to be open and transparent about how they are investigating that death and how they are protecting the people in their communities. There is never an excuse for violence against police or for those who would use this tragedy as a cover for vandalism or looting. There's also no excuse for police to use excessive force against peaceful protests or to throw protesters in jail for lawfully exercising their First Amendment rights. And here in the United States of America, police should not be bullying or arresting journalists who are just trying to do their jobs and report to the American people on what they see on the ground. Put simply, we all need to hold ourselves to a high standard, particularly those of us in positions of authority.
Look, the one thing of note there is normally the way those statements go is, oh, it's regrettable what happened to the victim, but it's really important that you not do anything about it. Okay, hey, don't protest too vociferously, don't make the cops come after you, etc. That's normally how it goes. Here he flipped it at least, and he said, look, you know, it's incredibly important that there be no rioting and nothing that cross over the line to violence, but it's also really important for the police to act responsibly, those in positions of power and authority, to say, hey, wait a minute, we got to be careful here, not going after protesters in the press. So that's good. All right, now, here comes the surprising part. Ted Cruz statements saying that, you know, we got to be careful here. Interesting. He said, reporters should never be detained. A free press is too important simply for doing their jobs, referring to a Washington Post and a Huffington Post reporter, and even an Al Jazeera America camera crew that was hit with tear gas. He said, together we should all mourn the loss of life in Ferguson, Missouri, and work to keep our communities safe and free. Police officers risk their lives every day to keep us safe, and any time a young man loses life in a confrontation with law enforcement, it is tragic. Pretty good statement. And he said, civil liberties must be protected, but violence is not the answer. Once the unrest is brought to an end, we should examine carefully what happened to ensure that justice is served. He's playing both sides a little bit there, but that's fair. I mean, obviously we shouldn't, no one wants the rioting or looting, which, by the way, happened only on one night, did not happen last night when the protesters were attacked. But I'm surprised at his emphasis. And then I read more. It turns out there's a lot of libertarian Republicans who are like, see, we warned about a militarized police, and we warned about government getting too big. Justin Amash, a very strident libertarian Republican, also coming out even much more forcefully than Ted Cruz and saying they've gone too far. And now wait till you get a load of this. Rand Paul with an op-ed, which was really kind of great. He said there is a legitimate role for the police to keep the peace, but there should be a difference between a police response and a military response. Exactly right. Now, he's going to blame some of it on big government, but he's a libertarian. I get why he does that. And by the way, in this case, he's right. The government is too big. That's why, you know, all these hundreds of millions of dollars of military equipment poured into the police departments. They don't help. They hurt in cases like this. He says, not surprisingly, big government has been at the heart of the problem. Washington has incentivized the militarization of local police precincts by using federal dollars to help municipal governments build what are essentially small armies, where police departments compete to acquire military gear that goes far beyond what most Americans think of as law enforcement. Hey, great, man. Look, the reason I'm a little surprised by this, honestly, is in the past, even libertarian-leaning conservatives would come out massively against the police and in favor of the protesters if they were white. I'm keeping it real. Cliven Bundy, oh my God, the cops, I can't believe they took his cow because he's not paying taxes. Nobody should pay taxes anyway. Cliven Bundy, right? But if it's black folks protesting, they're like, come on. You got to respect the law. You got to respect the law, okay? Come on now. To do what the cops tell you to do, and you won't have any problems. But not in this case. And they're saying, hey, listen, it doesn't matter white or black, okay? This is the American people, and you don't have the right to have these guys dress up as G.I. Joe and go in there and pummel them. In fact, here's what Rand Paul said about racial issues. He said, anyone who thinks that race does not skew the application of criminal justice in this country is just not paying close enough attention. And the root of the problem is big government. Ferguson resembles war more than traditional police action. But he's not done yet talking about race. He said, given these developments, it is almost impossible for many Americans not to feel like their government is targeting them. Given the racial disparities in our criminal justice system, it is impossible for African Americans not to feel like their government is particularly targeting them. Damn. Credit where credit is due, man. Look, I'm a progressive. We've never hidden that. We talk about it all the time. But the point of this show is to tell you things as they objectively are to the best of our abilities, okay? I don't normally agree with Rand Paul. I certainly don't normally agree with Ted Cruz. But when he's right and he's done the right thing, you have to give him credit for that. That is going a lot further than a lot of Democrats have said. You know, look, I don't know that it's appropriate for Hillary Clinton to comment on this, but does anybody think that Hillary Clinton would have been, you know, as forceful as Rand Paul was? But what if she gets criticized? Oh, now the Democrats have the disadvantage that no matter what they say, Fox News is going to attack. Oh, yeah, you see that? They're politicizing this, and they're going to turn it into, you know, now it's racial, and oh, you know how they are, trying to be victims, etc. And then they don't do that against Republicans. Okay, all that being said, Rand Paul did say this, and he is right, and I'm glad he's saying it. So, interesting day in America. Okay, out of this horrible situation, a slight silver lining where some Republicans are actually right about at least a couple of issues. Whoa.